All right, I'm going to call the meeting of the Development Review Board for February 19th to order. At the DRB, we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro and appeals of zoning administrator decisions. Procedurally, the Development Review Board operates on the record. Broadly, this means that we take a clear record of testimony from the applicant and any interested parties, and then issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that as we are on the record, this is your opportunity to comment on and provide evidence relating to an application. Application materials and written testimony are posted to the town website as received. Hearings may be continued at the board's discretion if materially important documents are received after the submission deadline. In the event our decision is appealed to the environmental court, the court will not take or consider additional testimony at its hearing, but will look at the evidence from our hearings, regulations, and determine if the evidence supports the findings and decisions of the board. Only interested persons that participate in this proceeding may appeal a decision made by the board. So I strongly encourage all of you to speak up at this hearing. As we are on the record, we are going to ask you to affirm that your testimony will be truthful. So would the applicants and anyone wishing to speak to an application please affirm the following. I hereby affirm that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury. Please say, I do, if you agree to that.
Do.
Applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed. That is 4 votes out of 7. If we do not have a full board present to hear your application, then we will consider a request to continue your application to the next public meeting. So in this case, we do not have a full board. 2 of our members have conflicts already declared, and we might have some more conflicts to declare later on. So we'll continue, and I'd like to take this opportunity to ask Keith Maxwell to sit in for us, as he's our alternate, and he'll be on the board today. So we have 6 people on the board tonight. Pretty good. After taking testimony, the board will close the public hearing and may vote on your application. The board will issue a written decision within 45 days of the close of the hearing. While we may vote on an application, it is the written decision that controls the timeline for appeal. It should be noted that the town of Brattleboro is a party with an interest in land development applications. The town does not have a special status before this board. Documents provided to the board by the town planning department, town attorney, or other town departments will be considered in exactly the same way as information from the applicant and all other interested parties. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of January 29th?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Aye.
Is Brian on? Okay. So has the meeting been properly warned? Okay, so we do have one of the interested parties has a dispute over whether the meeting was properly warned. We talked about it and we decided to go ahead with the hearing, and if he wants to appeal on this morning, he can do so. Disclosures of conflicts of interest in ex parte communication. So in this case, we have one of our regular members is an interest party because he has a conflict because he's in a fighter. And another one of our members has decided they have a conflict. I think nearly all of us probably have some sort of connection to the Winston Prouty campus, and I want to declare that I do have a connection. My husband is on the board of the Inspire School. It's a volunteer position, And I'm sure it won't influence my judgment in this case. Does anybody else have a conflict or an ex parte communication?
I did. I was looking at the landscaping diagram and made the classic email error of responding all instead of back to Brian about whether a couple of trees were seedless or seeded. It wouldn't have mattered to me either way. I was curious about the kind of tree. So
Do you think it will influence your decision
not
in
at
this
all.
case?
Neither answer. Potted or not, or seedless, wouldn't it?
Okay. Anybody else have a conflict? No? Or ex parte communication? Thank you. All right, what's the number on this one?
2025-6.
-6. All right, 2025-6. Can we have the applicants come up to the table, please, and tell us about your project?
Go ahead.
Go
Can you
ahead.
hear me okay?
Yes, speak up as much as you can.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Chloe Leary. I'm the Executive Director of the Winston Prouty Center, and we're very happy to be in front of you tonight. Thank you for your time. I'll just give a quick overview of how we ended up here and then hand it over to Mark, our project manager, to talk about the details. So we purchased the former Austin School campus in 2016, and we really view ourselves as stewards of a community asset and thinking about how best to use it on behalf of our community. This partially came out of a planning process we did about 5 years ago. We had a 25-member community task force help us look at different aspects of the campus, how to make it sustainable, what was important about it in terms of how it is in the community and what benefits it might serve. And this is really where the idea of housing came up. Chris Campany, who's the executive director of the Wyndham Regional Commission, was on the task force and said, this property is in a very interesting spot. It's connected to town infrastructure, and it's unusual to find a property like this sort of this close to services. So wouldn't it be interesting to think about housing? And we thought, oh, that's years down the road. But of course, we all know about the housing crisis, and not just in our town, but in Vermont and nationally. And it felt like our responsibility to really seriously explore, could this asset be used for that purpose? So we've been doing that work for the past few years. We really dove in seriously in 2023. We did a master plan about how could we fit 300 plus units, thinking about infill development, multifamily, how could we really make a dent in the number that was coming out of the town housing needs assessment that was said, this was 2024, we needed 500 units just to be up to speed, and that was a few years ago. So we sort of set our sights high. And we presented our master plan to the community members in November of 23, got some feedback, and went back to the drawing board, so to speak, and have been working on it ever since to figure out how to make it sort of reflect our community, meet the needs of our community. We looked at sort of different structures. We presented again to the community in August of 2024, got some more feedback, and then really started thinking about modular construction. So that's where we have ended up today. We had the fortune of meeting some folks who developed the modular building system. We looked at some of their properties. Green Stacks is the name of the company. And that really inspired us to think about how can we take this and start and use it here. So we've really been focusing on phase one. So the materials in your packet are just a part of what we've been talking about these past few years. So it's just an initial phase that we hope will help us learn a lot about how can we make this work. What are some of the barriers? What makes sense? Sort of, an opportunity for us to practice being like how offering this asset to the community and seeing how it can play out. So phase one is the 28 units that we're proposing on the it's not former, but the Wheeler House lot. So the greenhouse that most folks see you can see off of Maple Street. And we've been working really hard to figure out how to make it possible because we know our community really, really, really needs housing. And I guess it's really important for me to say this is housing for everybody in the sense of building out a robust housing continuum. We've done a very good job building affordable housing for people that has income criteria. And we think that it's important to add to that housing stock with this project. So that's part of our values of inclusion as an organization. And it's really informing how we think about who can live here and how do we want to live together in community, building community. And we feel like we have something that is workable and viable, and we want to keep moving forward with it. So I'm going to hand it over to Mark to talk about the information in your packet.
So before you start, and you said you want to find ways to make this work smoother. And I would say one of the things that you guys can do is get your documents in on time. They were not timely. We got some of them quite late yesterday. And this volunteer board, people have lots of responsibilities, and we'd like at least a week to look things over. So go ahead, Mark. There, you have your little,
Thank you for your advice. Yes, Mark Westa. I'm a landscape architect serving as the project manager. I live here in town. One thing I'm not sure about is, would you like me to point at graphics either on the screen or here, or just talk through things?
Most people with this kind of project have some sort of graphics and reference it as they're going through.
Okay.
We will have questions, and then the graphics will be very useful. You can use the screen, right? You can get that stuff up there, but a lot of times they big things that people
We have some plans I could bring over.
Okay. Just make sure that people on Zoom can see them.
Right, that's why I was wondering.
Yeah, it's a little
Which was
difficult.
best.
It's pretty small. Yeah, go ahead.
Are these legible or?
Yeah, pretty small, but give it a try. Maybe Steve, see what you can do and see if that works better for the people on the Zoom call.
I guess I can't do both.
Well, they can see the video on Zoom as well.
Yeah, that might be better for them.
Okay,
And we have it here.
right.
So
Yeah, we have
Okay.
copies.
Just go with that now.
And then this audience may see how, yeah, I think that'll work better.
Okay, that's sort of what I thought. Right, so as Chloe was saying, we're looking to build 28 residential units. It's on a 1.69 acre lot that we will subdivide out basically between the 91 highway on the left of your screen. Maple Road is to the bottom of your page there, and the existing Austin Drive is to the right there. The Wheeler House site, as Chloe said. What we're looking at building is a 3-story building. It would be most likely modular construction, but we're not completely sure if that's the way we're going to go at this point. And it really is looking to, sort of build housing for everyone. The driveway that you see there is more or less the same driveway as exists there. The right edge on the page is just about the same as the driveway that's there now, and it heads into a parking lot. We're using a sidewalk that would kind of climb the grade and then provide sort of an accessible point that would be across the whole front of the building, providing access to people with all abilities to get to all of the ground floor units. So we think it's going to be a wonderful place for all kinds of different people. The sort of yellowish mustard colors on either side are indicating some of the buffer areas from the wetlands. And you can see sort of the parking up above on the right of the page. And what we're showing here is 22 parking spaces with the idea that that would accommodate the people that want to have a car right there. And there may be some people who don't need a car all the time that could park in other lots. That kind of crescent-shaped lot right above is quite a large parking lot that is rarely full. Another important part of our idea is that, we have transit on campus. We are trying to be a bike kind of friendly place. We can walk to many of the places nearby. The hospital is not that far, some of the stores. As the campus grows, we might look into things such as car sharing and bike sharing. So all those different modes of transportation would come into play here. I think, part of the reason that we started with this particular site is really the proximity to town utilities, proximity to the town road. It allows us to keep the costs reasonable and also at the same time take advantage of those assets that are, right there on the town road. It also fits well with the current town zoning, and so we like that. And we're really trying to create a place that fits the neighborhood scale and at the same time works with sort of the Winston Prouty, campus feel. One of the things that I would like to say, overall, a lot of people have questions about how far this project might grow. We really, in the future, intend to just keep it to the campus as it's known now, even though we own, quite a bit of land up in the back. There's no intention to kind of use those back acres or the beautiful kind of meadow area up behind for this development. It's really kind of focused on the core area. Stephen, could you go to the elevations? So we just wanted to kind of point out the current design as we had it. You can see sort of the modular quality of it, 3 stories tall. And as we are hoping, if it is modular built, they would be brought to the site and could quite easily, be erected fairly rapidly. So we think that's a benefit to the community, that construction could happen in a short period of time. The colors that we're showing here have not been, finalized or anything like that. We're really looking, we're taking our time with that, and we're going to consider other colors that might fit in with kind of a different aesthetic. But we like the character of this building. We think it really will be, very useful. We're providing small studio apartments, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and some 3 bedrooms. So there's.
Can you give us the numbers on those?
So 10 studios, 10 1 bedrooms, 4 2 bedrooms, and 4 3 bedrooms. That's our current kind of situation. We have changed that a few times recently, so I wouldn't say that that's set in stone, but I think it's pretty solid at this point. I think some of the things that we wanted to just touch on are, we obviously are in front of this board. We have put in for a jurisdictional opinion with Act 250. We are going after state stormwater permit right now, and we will be going after all the other permits that are required or needed, depending on, exactly what happens. But certainly things like erosion control, wastewater, and drinking water permits, things like that. We'll be meeting with the fire department early next week.
Oh, you haven't seen them yet?
We have not seen them yet, but we will. And we are certainly happy to meet with any other folks in the community that have thoughts on this. Is there anything else? I mean, we're happy to go through additional drawings or whatever, but.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I live right in the middle of downtown, and so early this morning I heard the heavy moving equipment clearing our snow. So I'd like to be sure on behalf of the residents that noise is controlled and that you are aware of the noise ordinances and the working hours, starting and stop times
Yeah.
during the construction so that neighbors aren't subjected to vehicles with their beeping
Right.
reverse noises going off at 3 in the morning.
So you're mostly talking about during construction, but obviously
Yes.
also during operations.
Yes.
Yeah, we will, I mean, I certainly hope or think that Winston Prouty has been a very good neighbor to the community, and we would certainly try to uphold that. So, whatever we need to do to be good stewards of the land and good neighbors, we will try to accomplish that, and we will certainly follow any guidelines or laws or regulations.
So you want to bring the site plan up? No, that one's fine. All right, so a lot of the talk is going to be about parking. I guess you expected that. And so we have 22 parking spots for 28 apartments, and some of those are bigger apartments. And you say you have some parking that's, I guess it's, you're thinking about where people who are doing hiking and whatnot park when they're over there. Is that what you're thinking?
No, it's right on the drawing right there. Would you like me to get up and point?
Yes, please.
Sure. So when you enter off of Maple Road currently, stand over here.
Remember, the Zoom people can't see you, so to explain it while you're
Right.
doing it, yeah,
So Austin Drive, the driveway entrance into campus
right,
comes off, and immediately there's a left that kind of comes across. Many people use it to park to go to the soccer fields and things
Right.
like that.
yeah,
That parking lot is, very close to this. It is uphill,
right,
but it is very close. And we are suggesting, through this diagram, a walkway that would connect. There also is currently a walkway on this side that we can connect to. But the idea would be that this parking is really quite adjacent to this property. And, especially people that might have, not the need to use their car every day, which would include people who work on campus.
right,
We are hoping that people could live here and actually work on campus and, not need their car very much. People that don't have vehicles at all.
right.
People that are using transit or bikes quite a bit. So we feel like the 22 will serve most of the units, but obviously not all of the units.
Okay. So how many feet is that away?
That is a good question. I would have to, I'm gonna say 80 feet.
Okay, not that,
Not that
but
far.
pretty steep.
This building's almost 60 feet deep, so it's 60 feet plus a little.
Right, okay, so
Yeah.
it's more than 80 then. But it's very steep, right?
It is quite steep, yeah. So we would negotiate that, slope. We might come back across. As I said, there's also this existing walkway that comes up from the street over here, so we could tie into that, and that functions quite well right now.
Thank you. Anybody else? You have any questions?
Well, I have some questions. So you're proposing a subdivision here for this lot that's going to take it out of the 180 acres of the lot.
Right.
And there's a couple conditions for this district that I'm wondering about. Like one is that the principal entrance must face the street. It faces it in some sense, but
Right.
so we might have to talk about that. I'm also wondering about the porches. There's a condition that you need to have one of the conditions you could have a storefront, you could have a decorative fence, you could have a porch, or you can have a covered stoop, which is kind of what I'm seeing in the plan here.
Yeah.
And it says it has to be no less than 16 feet in area. So you want to make sure that if that is the case, that that's a condition they need to meet, that they would be at least 16 feet.
Yeah.
I have a question about the buildings. They'll be fireproof in the sense of sprinklers?
Yeah. Yes, they will. I mean, they're going to have fire rated walls between the units. They are going to be sprinklered. There'll be a fire alarm. Those are some of the things we're going to talk to the fire chief about, but yes, they will be fireproof.
And then I see a trash collection area. Is that?
Yeah, so we're currently suggesting sort of this shed that could have some dumpster areas or rollout areas. It's probably a little over big, so maybe even some things like bike storage or things like that in it.
So for the trash collection area, it says that we need it to be at the side or the rear of the building, and screened from view from the property line. So
Right.
I know that
Mhm.
is met.
Kind of in the front of the building,
Yeah,
in the catty corner there.
we certainly could move it. We think it's a convenient place for everybody to bring things. It is fairly far back, so it would be hard to see. And we're actually picturing a fairly nice sort of shed building that, the unsightly stuff would be more or less inside it. So
So do you have laundry in the building?
I don't think we have gotten that far with the design of the building yet, but I would imagine that would be a yes.
Every unit has laundry.
Every unit has.
Every unit will have laundry?
Put out the entrance and the exits for
Each unit.
not for each unit, but for the entire escape route, if you will, for the residents.
So the units each have a front door where they could come out, and the back door, the back at the ground floor will have windows where they can go out the back.
Okay.
Do you have indoor bike storage planned?
I think we will have some in the shed, and beyond that, we don't have any specific plans for that yet.
Have you talked to the mover people about the bus and how it's gonna interact with this?
We have not. We have, talked to the mover about general circulation on campus in the past, but not about this.
Not about this.
Specifics of it.
Is there?
You said that you were going to be talking to the fire department. Does that mean, I'm looking at your layout here, seems to be the only entrance is in through that gray part where the parking lot is?
Yes, right. Yes, that is the entry, driveway entry.
So how would emergency vehicles get in?
Emergency vehicles would come down Maple Street and turn into the entry and come into the parking lot.
Okay. It just seems a little difficult if you're going to have cars parked there.
Well, it meets code, and it is pretty standard. There is a requirement for places with large parking lots or long roadways to have more than this, but we are also providing some area for turnaround. And of course, the vehicles, in an emergency, something like a fire truck can back out into the street. They would do that. That's not unusual for a fire truck to do.
Anybody else have anything? Tim?
I have a quick question.
Go
How
ahead.
will the parking spaces be allocated? Like, will units rent them or like?
That we have not fully figured that out. But I mean, I think the key thing is that within proximity of this unit, of this building, there is quite a bit of parking. Who gets the ones right in front? Could be something related to sort of, paying for them, or it could be part of the lease agreement. But we haven't really delved into that detail yet.
Okay, I was just curious.
And I see the wetland buffer area. That's area you can't touch, really? Is that?
Yeah. Right. With the wetland program in the state, we really basically are hands off. So we have suggested putting a fence, like a split rail fence along part of it to kind of indicate that where people aren't supposed to go.
And so in terms of not having enough space, you can't make the parking lot bigger because that would encroach into the wetland.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is a very tight site with the kind of steep slopes. It's also a little bit why the building's turned the way it is. We're really trying to use this site to provide a lot of housing. So that's kind of the first priority, making it fit well, we think. Not giving up too much to parking, but trying to be reasonable about it, offering an alternative. The screen area over here is going to be sort of the stormwater management area. So, if you kind of look at it that way, almost all of the site is accounted for in some way, between the steep slopes, the wetland buffers, the stormwater, the parking. So we're really trying to fit it in a way that works well.
And so you'll break this lot out into a new entity, or is it all one legal entity with the Winston Prouty Center?
In consultation with a lawyer in terms of development, my understanding is property development often sets up an LLC to keep it separate but it can be wholly owned. So right now, setting up the LLC would be a single entity owned by Winston Prouty. So it would be all part of, I think it's a legal tactic or maneuver to protect, sort of keep it separate, but it will still be Winston Prouty.
And you will be the one collecting rent,
Right
the
now,
LLC.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yes, for property management purposes, we manage the campus and we'll keep managing. We would consider it part of the campus. I mean, I think for those of you who know the campus, it's really connected in the sense of, who's there and watching out for each other. And so it's really important for us to see this not as separate, but as sort of the first phase of something that's building the residential part of a community.
So let's talk about snow, since we have so much right now. And I noticed as I was driving down how skinny the streets are getting. And so I saw the little triangle there is
Right.
where the snow from the porches and whatnot.
The porches and those upper walkways.
Right.
pushed
And then the
back.
snow from the parking lot.
Yeah, would probably get pushed to this edge.
Right.
This is the stormwater management area, but the upper parts of it are just the slope going down to it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, snow would be pushed, kind of to the end, to the side. And as you said, the snow in the middle would probably kind of fill that other space.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that is nice about the Winston Prouty campus, they deal with this stuff already and they would continue to deal with it. So, whether it's maintenance of the lawns or snow or anything like that, they have the people and the wherewithal to accomplish these things.
Any more questions from the board?
I'm just curious about the checking in with the fire department. I mean,
Yep.
the result of that meeting could produce
Absolutely.
some pretty radical changes being
Mhm.
needed.
Yeah.
So how do we build that into any kind of?
It'll all be contingent on what the fire department says.
Okay.
We've seen in these kind of apartment buildings before that they like to have a way behind the building to get their truck in, and it has to be relatively flat, and you have to put, something that can hold a truck.
Yes.
And so maybe they don't need it now because I noticed you have a hydrant close by.
Right.
But that would change this drastically if that's what they required.
My other question is, I might have missed it if you mentioned it. What's the small roofed area? Is that a
This one?
maintenance shed or?
Yeah, so right now we're thinking of it as a garbage collection area and possibly sort of a bike storage or kind of sundry things that people don't want to pull into their apartment.
Okay.
And there's been some discussion about where the front line of the building is. I think I'm willing to accept there's interpretation wiggle room there.
The curve of Maple
Where the
Street.
curve is, I don't
Yeah.
know. If you have anything, Jim?
Did we go to get the graphic that I drew? Or I could just do it here.
Yeah.
It's probably fine here.
Pull it up.
Okay.
You said that you were going to have, have three bedroom apartments that may have a 3-bedroom apartment and two. More than likely there'll be children. Is there a place where children can, be safe?
Good question.
Well, I think in our vision of how this is going to work, we have an entire campus that is very much related to children and families. And that they could use all of that, just as the neighbors currently do, to come and walk and play. There's rec fields off to the side. There's really a lot of sort of recreational amenities. Where they would play right here, there is a little bit of green space, but you're correct, it is fairly tight. But we're picturing this as part of a bigger campus. Yeah, just as far as the front line goes, kind of like the regulations you were talking about before, there is this kind of idea that parking, does not extend into the front yard, and planning staff had drawn a line that had included some of these parking spaces. And I was just trying to make the point that from my perspective, the key thing is kind of this straight stretch of Maple. And then if you kind of use the parallel lines off of that and use this front corner, the parking lot is behind that front line. I think it's a reasonable way to look at it. Certainly people coming in this direction, that would be the feel of it. But I think the interpretation that planning staff came up with is also valid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's open for interpretation, but I think other people are more familiar with the.
Well, we haven't come across this kind of,
Yeah.
It's where do you draw the angle, right?
It's weird for two reasons too. It's weird because of the curve, but it's also weird because of this little chunk, which is really probably there because of the highway. Like normally you would have a property line square to the road, parallel to the road. So it's kind of awkward for two reasons.
Yeah.
And then I noticed the apartments are not accessible in terms like for wheelchair. So that's not a requirement that you need to meet.
All the ground floor apartments will be accessible.
Oh, so there'll be a ramp. I mean, the rendering shows steps and.
Oh, yeah. So because the grade is difficult, the pathway from this point across to get to the accessible routes, you can come in here, 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 and you can get across to those units. So it would be nice if each one had a direct shot. But this does, it provides quite a few apartments with direct accessible entry. And then the other ones, you just kind of have to go a little farther.
So, but the rendering that's just kind of temporary, like the rendering doesn't show these ramps.
I think
It doesn't. I didn't see it.
But I understand that might not be the final.
Yeah.
We might need to.
Oh, you mean the elevations?
Yes.
Right.
You are correct.
This is on diagram.
You are correct.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the plan.
So how would someone in a wheelchair get up those steps?
So compared to the sort of the site plan, there are steps shown on the site plan here and here, but this one has more or less a ramp.
Okay.
And a ramp and a ramp. Okay. They're really quite flat, but so they're really just walkways.
So those ones might not need steps, you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have elevators in this building?
No.
No elevators.
And then parking is the contiguous spots.
There's one extra, right?
Folks, I don't actually think that that applies in this.
In this district, okay.
Right.
Sometimes we limit the number of spots you can have in a row.
Okay, the lighting plan, which we didn't get to see. Can you just talk about it? Get the site thing up and you can talk about what you have in mind for lighting.
Yeah, we have not done photometrics. Those gets a little complicated. Usually from a design point of view, that's farther down the road. But for the most part, we would have lighting and it would, meet the dark sky standards. It would be downcast. And those would be at the sort of front of the building. And then the only other place we're really showing lighting is sort of along this walkway. So with the intent that those would light this walkway, sort of dimly light the parking lot and, sort of help accentuate this kind of common area.
But not up to the accessory parking.
No.
Okay. Anybody else? You guys? Catherine, Allison?
I don't have any right now.
I don't know if it's something that we would deal with, is that about the internal lighting, because I live on the third floor of the building and I know that the stairways have to be lit, and I know sometimes you can see that lighting outside.
Right.
Yeah, the interior stairways and corridor would be lit. But sort of normal light, and we would try to keep it so it's not offensive.
Okay, if we're finished, I can open it up to the interested parties in the room. I'm going to ask you to, whichever way you're going, to kind of be on point. So go ahead. Who would like to have a chance?
Got a bit of a
Yeah, we
presentation.
do, but maybe somebody else can go first.
Sure.
If anybody else want to speak?
Say something, well,
No? Anybody on Zoom? It's a lot of people. Okay, go ahead, Michael. He wanted to use the table over here.
okay. Here's my, here's the whole presentation. I just. I do have some copies of the presentation with pictures and maps and all that other stuff, if anybody is interested in a paper one.
Sure. Make sure, Michael, Steve, you got one already, Stephen?
Excellent.
Let me see.
Let's have it share.
This one,
We could share.
no, hold on. That one.
So how about the people on Zoom there, Michael? Oh,
I gave
Steve.
Steve the whole graphics package. I mean, that has the whole presentation in it, that red one. This is the rest of the one that goes with that's just missing the notice portion. Here's another paper one, but we can watch the whole one. Yeah. Well, hello all. You know me. I'm Michael Averill. I live in my house directly across the street from the proposed project. I am vice chair of the DRB, but in this case, I must recuse myself because of, I believe, the catastrophic impact that this application in front of you would have on my life and our local environment as well as my neighborhood. You folks here who volunteer on this board are aware of the untimely death of my wife in mid-December. 1 month later, Winston Prouty filed this application with the town, and I became aware of it 3 weeks ago. After receiving in a butter package of mail. In this presentation, I will attempt to be succinct, but there are just so many inaccuracies within this application, problems with the project in general that are obvious to me, given the time of year and the short preparation time allowed. I was unable to collaborate with other experts. If that were not the case, I'm sure there would be many more discrepancies to point out to you. I do not expect any differential treatment from you because I normally sit on this board. Knowing you as I do, I'm sure you will provide an impartial rule-based decision. Even though the idea of creating a large residential community on Winston Prouty has strong backing by the planning board, planning department, and both town and state governments. I approve of the goal of increasing Brattleboro's housing. However, this project, as proposed, was an ill-conceived and inappropriate plan and will not be a successful start to the village at Winston Prouty. This is a high-profile project. Let's be really careful and get this first phase right. Second, I will, and I don't know, I did suggest that that this meeting wasn't noticed properly. The signs that were given, and Steve, you can click through those on the screen. There should be 1A through whatever it is. There you go. This project was not properly warned. The sign provided the applicant was not properly placed and I don't know whether you want me to read off all these citations as far as the Vermont laws, 24 VSA 446-2A1B, within view of the public right-of-way, most nearly adjacent to the property for which an application is made. In my 20 years of land use development experience as the owner-manager of Averill Engineering, LLC, I was well aware that any posting must be clearly legible and readable from a public road and must be maintained there for 15 days prior to the hearing date. As you can see from the photos, and you can flip on through there, nobody driving by would see a sign. And because it was where the sign is and just so that you know, so that you can kind of see that. I just took pictures every 20 feet as I was going through here. The sign's right there. Just so I really don't think it was properly warned as far as anybody driving by or even walking by would even notice that it was there. And, it's not the first time that this has happened. Back when Winston Prouty was doing their getting ready for the contract with the state to house the families up there, they were changing around the dorms, and I noticed that I happened upon the posting sign that they had there. If you could call up that last picture in that series. Yeah, that was the posting sign that they put up on the building was right next to the door on this building up here. See, right about there, 300 feet away from the public road. So I came across it after the warning time was over. And so it kind of kept me from being able to appeal it at all. Yeah, this is a little annoying, but the design review procedures for 37B suggests that in a combined review, the words combined review, I assume this is a combined review.
It's not, Michael.
It isn't.
It's just major site plan review.
So it's you're doing subdivision, building, and something else. What are all the things that are on the?
There's minor subdivision, which is not something that this board.
Demolish subdivision and this huge building.
Right.
So that's not considered a combined review?
No, it's major site plan review. I know that they've put in for a Act 250 jurisdictional opinion, so I'm not frankly sure.
Anyways, I would think that it should
later.
show up on that. Those words should show up there because it sure feels like a combined review to me. I would certainly want to see that. And then finally, what Keith had mentioned earlier, the emails, and you can show them up there if you'd like. They are in the next graphic. Show that back on February 5th and 6th, there was a whole email chain that people were communicating back and forth about the project with the project manager about one thing. I think it was mostly plantings and such. That I believe that kind of runs afoul of the open meeting law for the DRB. That I know for sure Nora saw it. I know for sure I saw it. And I know for sure Keith saw it. I'd be willing to bet that one of the other members of the DRB had their eyes on it at one time or another. So that would kind of be a quorum, I would say. So for those three reasons, I would have suggested that the notice was inappropriate. Anyway. Now we get into the fun stuff. And you have paper copies and digital copies of all this so that you can review it. And most of the things are listed there with sites in our book. I didn't copy all those down for you. Oh, I'm just having a problem with this. The purpose of the mixed use district, right in the very beginning, purpose is to serve as a transitional area between those higher density districts and nearby residential neighborhoods. This structure puts high density right in the face of nearby residential neighborhoods with mostly single family houses. And you can call up, there's a bunch of pictures there about all the single family houses that are along Maple Street. I don't think there's like 10 or 12 of them there. Nice little single family houses. They're all right along Maple Street. Nice, pleasant little street. My house. And just to understand that, just so that you people get an idea of the sheer bulk of this. The structure is 157 feet long. That's like seven feet longer than the distance from. We just had the Super Bowl, so it from the ends 7 feet longer than the distance from the end zone to the 50-yard line. That's how long this building is. It's over 52 yards long, and it's 58 feet wide. That's like 20 yards wide. It's like, and it's got a flat top, not like any of the houses that we saw in the pictures. 3 stories high, which is, I think, the only 3-story building in all of Maple Street is the hospital. It has a multicolored checkerboard appearance to it, and just the sheer bulk, shape, and the sheer appearance of it, the bulk and shape, it will alter the existing character of the residential area forever. Yeah. So if you want to pull up the next ones, that in comparison, the closest complex around is Ledgewood Heights. That offers 41 apartments spread over 10 structures. One of the larger buildings in there is number 46, and you can see the site plan for number 46. It's right there. That has 3,036 square feet footprint. Between 1 and 2 stories tall, you can go, and there's a picture of it. It's between 1 and 2 stories tall with a gabled roof. And it kind of attempts to give a pleasing look to it. And in comparison, Ledgewood Heights is also in a residential neighborhood, but has the good taste of locating their entire project away from the street and the surrounding neighborhood. This building that we're talking about here is got 2/3 of all the apartments in all of Ledgewood Heights goes into this one building that they're proposing. Now, Chloe told me a while back that the main reason why that they needed to start here was because of the costs associated with getting the water and the sewer into into the campus. And Bernie's had looked for monies to try to help with the infrastructure, federal monies. I think he was looking for like $2 million. Unfortunately, that fell through. So it seemed as if that was the reason why we needed to start here now. Just last month, Governor Stott's setting aside in his financial program, setting aside $1 million to be able to do this infrastructure work. But so with those monies, I would think it might make more sense to try to bring the infrastructure up to campus and start there instead of trying to do things right in the face of Maple Street. Just a thought. Now, as if you could click on to the next picture. Now, this was the idea that we were showed this last, as what, that you were proposing just this last fall, was to have more gable type buildings. The area that we're talking about here is this is my house here, and you were talking about having more individual structures that would be located around there. And if you go to the next picture, the place that you were showing was, as far as applications were, they were 3 stories high, but they were like by this Green Stacks. Isn't that the company that you've been looking at? Oh, I thought those were the pictures that you showed us just at the public meeting.
For the most recent version is the mod. This is not modular.
No, back and forth, please. You can continue and later on. It's all right.
These are pictures of Green Stacks that would be kind of a little bit more in tune with the neighborhood rather than this big box thing. Just a thought. And that was the impression that I got up until 3 weeks ago, that the direction we were headed in. All right.
Other objections?
Huh?
Do you have more objections?
More what?
Objections.
Oh, God, yes.
Okay, continue on with them, please.
Huh?
Continue.
I certainly will. Now we get to the capability of the site. If you could go up to the next map. All right. Well, this area relies very heavily on the wetland delineation, as shown, because in their drawing, the area of the delineation comes right up to the edge of the house. Remember, I don't know, did you saw that where it's right tight to the edge of the parking lot. Now, just this summer, they were, can you move that a little bit further? Just this summer, they were digging in this area. There's a wetland pond right here that's associated with the Act 250 permit that was done, I don't know, or well, stormwater permit that was done when they were doing all the other stuff way back when on the whole campus. There's a little wetland pond right here that's associated with this line that goes down here. There's some drainage lines that go from here out to this wetland. This last summer, they had an excavator in here and they were digging all around this area. And apparently they were fixing some of the pipes and the drainage that were going to the wetland area. That would, in fact, increase the amount of water that was going into the wetland. Now, and I don't know, they talk about their wetland being delineated. They do not say anywhere on there who delineated it or when they delineated it. If you want to go on to the next graphic, you can see there, this was for the 2000 Act 250 permit. You can scooch it up a little bit further. This is that Act 250 permit was when they put in this parking lot. And in that's one, this is the wetland that was delineated for that project down along, that's up towards the Wheeler House there. But they also delineated a wetland that was down along the side of the stream on the other side. The plans that you have in front of you just does not show a wetland there. On the side to the left, they show wetland with its associated 50-foot buffer. On the one on the right, all they're showing is a stream buffer, which is quite different. So if you go on to the next map, and that's just the upper section of it that shows the top of that wetland. You go on, click on to the next one. You can see it a little bit better. So, and if you scooch it down just a little bit more, down. Oh, no, the other way. See, this is the wetland that was delineated by Stevens and Associates back in 2000. This is their wetland that they're showing on the map today. This is their site plan. And so it's not surprising to me that the wetland that they're looking at is bigger than the wetland that Stevens saw back in 2000, just because of, all the extra water that we're getting, and who knows why, but and it likely is bigger than that now because of the increased water that they made going into it. If you were to, this is the wetland that Stevens showed along that brook. And if you were to add a 50-foot wetlands buffer to that, it comes and goes right through their building. So it was convenient to ignore that in their design, I would say, because it really does make it quite difficult for them to build this building and still see that wetland there. All right. Now, the oh, we got something from these people just this I don't know, a week or two ago about a traffic study. And I looked through it, and their conclusion was that it was negligible. Or what was the word they used? I don't know. But I don't know. What if you were if you were to look on the World Atlas in Vermont, the per capita car ownership rate is 910 per 1,000 people. And the idea of supplying uh, 22 spots for 28 apartments is it seems like a recipe for failure. It really does. And I don't know. I read through that traffic study. When I went to engineering school, it was a while back, but they wanted you to take a look at the traffic that was there. They wanted you to take a look at all the possible affected intersections and grade each one of those intersections from A to F and see what traffic that was going to be added to it, what traffic was, what other projects were in the area that had already been approved and were going to be added to it. Like, for instance, the new buildings down on the corner of Maple and Guilford that are going in. Those are going to be there and adding more traffic to the streets well before these things are built. So all these things add up. So usually, in how they did it when I was going to school, is they had you add all these up, grade the intersections before any of these things happen, and then give them another grade after they happen, and then hold the developer responsible for the redesign of the intersections and the cost of changing those intersections once that's done. And I guess I don't see much of any of that going on here, and it concerns me being a taxpayer. I guess it just it's surprising, and so I really do think, and oh, I guess you can take another look at that graphic once again, or I don't know, how does that work? I've got to look at my notes here for a second. Oh, and I guess I'm a little concerned with their plans. You should have a colored plan of their, and I think it would be 4B. They show landscaping.
Make sure they can see this.
Hmm?
Got to make sure they can see this on Zoom. Just a second. Okay.
you make that a little bigger? All right. They show landscaping. Well, they did show landscaping there. I guess it's on the other drawing. But on the other drawing, they show the big building here and landscaping here and there. But that's with the road being here. They're up now, up until this project, they've been telling us that they're going to change the direction of those roads to make it a three-way stop to slow down the traffic in that area. But that would end up cutting all the green screen that is between my house and this new huge building right out of there. So any landscape, they aren't accounting for any of that landscaping as they're going along. And I guess I really feel it's important to take a look at this project as a whole rather just than a single phase that sort of says, well, we want to do this now, but these are really our other plans that we're looking at in the future. And we're going to cut down all those trees, but that was the green screen that we're relying on today. So it's, as the neighbor, it gets quite confusing. Anyways, we can move along. We're probably at least halfway through by now. I'm trying here, I really am. Well, I guess I'm having a little bit of problem with what we've been talking about here with our parking and our vehicular circulation. That a lot of the rules in this thing come up and they talk about the front of the building. Now, on their drawing, on their elevation drawing, they call the front of the building the one with all the doors in it. And it's confusing to me. I mean, and then when they go through and say, well, in mixed use, you have to have a 40% build out. And so that you kind of go through and you say, okay, you got 294 feet of frontage, and the building's 157 feet long. So therefore, that meets the requirements of that 40% build out of the frontage. But then later on, when you say, well, let's project the building towards the road and the frontage really isn't there, it's only about 100 feet wide. So somewhere along the line, we got to decide what's the front of the building, what the dimension of the front of the building, if the building's facing the road, the doors have to face the road in the mixed use district. And so, but you can't have the front of, depending on which calculation you're looking at, you can't have the front of the building change. The front of the building, I believe, there's like a definition in the five section of what the front of the building is, and it's like the front of the building. So changing it depending on what we're looking at is screwy. And having the parking lot is obviously in front of the building, and the parking lot can't be in front of the building in a mixed use area. So in my mind, the project fails because of that alone. And you can only have 30% of that surface be grass pavers. So And you have to have loading areas and surface areas and trash collection and dumpsters and everything else to be located on the side or the rear of the building. Now, you can't say, well, it's kind of skewed to the road, so the front really isn't the front, it's kind of the side, and so the dumpster being there is okay. And you need to have turnaround areas so that trucks and moving vans and dumpsters and everything else can pull in and turn around so they don't have to back out onto the street because that's inappropriate. And you can read through it. I've given you copies of it all, both digitally. You can look at all the sites in there, but there's a site in there where backing onto the street is inappropriate. I mean, even fuel deliveries, I'm regularly woken up at 2 a.m. with the plows going in and out there. But and when you do these things, make sure that they have proper turning radiuses on these roads, on these access roads that are on the side of the buildings. And once again, the fire department, most places that we've approved, especially large buildings, like smaller buildings than this, the fire department has required access to 3 sides that they want to be able to get at the building so they can get, and this shows none of that. That even, I think, you had mentioned the concern about some of the drawings that we just received. I think I received one yesterday that showed the sewer lines going in. And the sewer lines are going in right in the wetland that's right next to the stream. Is where they're going to dig their lines for their sewers to bring it in, sewers or water, I don't know. One of the utility lines are going in right there. So it's going to just cut through there. I'm flabbergasted, I guess. And now, as far as shared parking, there is a rule that the shared parking can't be more than 600 feet away. It's listed as 313E-2. And if you look at the drawing, and that's going to be 6A, I believe. You will be restricted to that lower parking lot. The upper parking lot is further away than would be allowed in any of those things. So you can't say, oh, well, park your car, if you're not using it, park it way out back somewhere. That doesn't count. And even in their presentation, they said, well, that lower parking lot is rarely full. Well, I believe in the shared parking arrangement, you need to assign so many spots to this building. You can't just say willy-nilly. I mean, you have to have signage on there, but like, for instance, nobody else can park in those shared spots before 9 o'clock in the morning, is according to our regulations. I believe I don't know which one it is, but and there's just an awful lot going on there that is just not being considered at all. And it's disturbing to me. And one of the things I noted on even the memorandum that Steve put together he had said, yes, that the front setback was fine. Well, when I measured the front setback in the mixed use area, it needs to be 10 to 30 feet. I measured it at 35. It's just, there's an awful lot wrong. It just doesn't. All right. Now, the stormwater. They've got this stormwater pond that's right off the edge of their driveway, that's in front of their building, that is going to collect the water from that driveway and from this flat rooftop. Gonna bring it into this pond, and it's got a pipe that goes under the road right onto my property. Where that comes out onto my property is right where I have a spring. This spring was used by Rufus Clark, who was the original owner of the house. It was built back in 1819. It was used by L.D. Thayer in the late 1800s. And he had his farm known as the Crystal Water Farm. And back in the 1800s, Brattleboro was known for its healing springs. He believed that this, in fact, was a healing spring. I found remnants. I found an old bathtub up in my attic, old copper bathtub. When I moved, it was up in the attic that they used to soak in these healing springs. The pipe that goes into this spring is still there. I can bring, not today, but I would be happy to bring you on a field trip to show you that. Now, I use this water, as did Bill and Betty Tyler, to build the swimming pool. Bill and Betty Tyler had the swim school there. We both use that water out of this spring to fill the pool. They're going to put this flat top, whatever material that comes off of this flat top roof, whatever stuff that comes off of this parking lot, going into this area and piping it right into my spring. I guess, and nobody's. I guess whenever I'm doing something, I kind of like go to the people, my neighbors, and ask them if there's anything that's important to them that really makes a difference, and try to work really hard about it. But anyways, so I guess, and you can pull up the graphic on there if you'd like. That's going to be 7A. You got to scoot it up a little bit. I've circled it. That's right where my spring is, right there. Right where they want to dump all their toxic overflow from their storm. And I guess the other thing that's, I think that I don't think that they quite get, when it rains up there, we get water coming down their driveway that flows right onto the street. We get water flowing down the stairs that are gushing over the stairs that are next to the driveway, right onto the street. They have water coming, their simple driveway comes right onto the road. I believe they have it written down as a 5% pitch. a 5% grade, and having water going onto the street is not appropriate for, it runs afoul of our rules once again. And I'm sure I've got a listing in there somewhere for where that is, but you just can't do that. Now we get to the fun part. Can we take a look at my pictures in 8? Which one's that?
This should be 8A.
That's what the campus looked like back in. That one looks, flick through those.
That's April 13th, 2023.
That's what the campus looks like now through my bedroom window. But if you should have more, you should have that.
That looks like March 15th, 2024.
Huh?
That says March 15th, 2024.
All right. So if you go back one from there. All right. And if you go back one more from there. All right. That's what the campus looked like in 2023. All right. Then you click forward one. January 24. They decided that they needed these security lights. I believe it was prior to when the families were arriving in their dorms. So they put this one security light shining right in my bedroom window. Must be about, I don't know, somewhere between 8,000 and 12,000 lumens. I have a tear sheet in there for the, I think it's a RAB or something like that. All right. So I went up and talked to him and I said, you know, what, you can't do this. You're adding big floodlights that are shining right in my building. They've got to be, they've got to be covered. You can't do this. Oh no, we'll take a look at that. In March, 2 months later, this is what you see. They added 2 more. Well, actually, they added 4 more. 2 more pointing right at my house. So I came up and said, well, what's going on? This, this is kind of crazy. I mean, you look in our regulation book and you see the lights in there that say you can't use. Those are the ones. And so every 2 months. So then they say, well, that company doesn't offer shielding. But we've talked to the head person and that does the campus here, and we're looking into procuring something. We're going to have something made to shield. And then 2 months later, I asked them. I said, "What's going on?" Well, and finally in the fall, when we were having a meeting in the fall, I asked Chloe, I said, what are you doing with lights? Nothing. Nothing's happened. Nothing continues to happen. If you look at, I believe there's a thing in there for the Act 250 permit. Their Act 250 permit, if you go to the third page in the Act 250 permit, specifically talks about lighting. And number 18, it says that it's got to be shielded and it can't be higher than 20 feet. neither of these happened. I mean, both of these are completely against these big floodlights that they put up just this last year. My wife at last DRB meeting talked to one of the select board people, showed him these pictures. Brian as well. I've talked to Brian a number of times. I know Brian's aware of it because he even added it into his draft decision about getting rid of these floodlights. But the lights, are driving me crazy. I've had to go out and buy blackout blinds for my house and install them because even with heavy drapes, I can't sleep at night. And I've asked them multiple times to do it. It's like the rules just don't seem to apply to them. And from them telling you that they've been really good neighbors, to me is, I find that rather confusing. I really do. If there's a sheet in there, I don't know, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Probably there. Those are lights they put up. RAB is the manufacturer, I believe. And I believe the lumen count is somewhere between 8,000 and 12,000. Depending on which ones they put up. I believe it's the one in the bottom left-hand corner with the little extra lines in it to make it extra bright. I don't know. But it's so anything that you approve for this project, I would, as I understand it in the rules, that they have to bring all of their lighting into compliance, not just on this new project. And I am concerned a little bit that even the lighting that they have that illuminates their parking lot up there is because it's, I don't know, 30, 40 feet higher than my house. Even if it's shielded, it's shining right down at me. So they do have, there are lights. My brother-in-law is an astronomer, and he's well aware they do have lights that are dark sky compliant, where they actually have the lights and have them go shine. So the bulb, you cannot see the bulb from anywhere. They shine up against a reflector, and the reflector sends a pool of light down onto where you want it directed. And I would, because of where their location and how it's set up, I really believe that something along those lines would be really important. And I would really appreciate it that before you approve any of this stuff, that they get all their lights up there fixed, because it's just been going on for quite some time and myself, my wife, it's caused us a lot of anxiety, and it's caused us an awful lot of sleepless nights. And it's just has been difficult. That portion of being their neighbors has been rather difficult. So you can, at your leisure, you can read through the rest of this. I've given it to you for the record so that you have it, you know it. I guess that's my question to you. Do you want me to read through all this stuff to have it in the record as far as having it appealable, or is that necessary?
No, not necessary. We have for the record.
Because I've given it to you both written and digitally.
Yep.
All right. Well, I I guess that if you get into I think we're getting down near the end here, it helps. If you start looking at the zoning portion of this, back in 2023, in August of 2023, a portion of this project for this company was zoned mixed use. Against the guidelines of what mixed use is. Mixed use is supposed to be connected to urban areas. This is the only mixed use area. If you look at the map there, it's the only mixed use area in all of town that doesn't comply with the rules. It's just out in the middle of a residential area. It was brought into existence for this purpose. And I believe, I guess I kind of look at that as being spot zoned. That it was done for these people, for this property alone. It wasn't like this area. My property wasn't considered mixed use, nor was any of the other neighborhood. It was just this property, and it was so that this project could happen. But in the mixed use area, this project fails in like a whole litany of ways. As I mentioned earlier, the setback to the corner of the roads is 35 feet. 30 is the maximum. Average front setback you can take a look at it at section 212H that the average setback is inappropriate because it says, if you wanted to say, oh, well, other places in the neighborhood have houses that are set back further from the road so that we can allow that to be set back further than 35 feet, 30 feet that's required. Because it's mixed use, you have to only look at other mixed use properties that are within 500 feet of this property. There are none. So you are not allowed to change that from the rules. I get that. And the way this is designed, it's certainly not this 52-yard long building is not a transitional area to a residential zoned area. I get it. Certainly doesn't protect or enhance the historic neighborhood. I mean, it's not a zoned historic, but my house is one of the older built surviving structures in the town, built in 1819. And this ain't helping it. I can tell you that for sure. And well, once again, as was mentioned in the memorandum, there's more than 200 square feet of paved land within the minimum front setback. It didn't seem like they even considered trying to bring the driveway in from their existing driveway, which could easily have been done and should be considered in the mixed use according to these rules. The landscape is inadequate, especially if they, once again, cut down all those trees because they want to change the road. So all that, the house would just sort of be right in my front yard rather than behind a little bit of a tree line. They have no loading areas and the dumpsters are not located on the side of the rear of the building. The facade, I believe that they've got square windows on the sides, which aren't allowed. The maximum facade of 20 feet on all four sides it's larger than that. Anyway, I guess I'm coming across, and I'm sorry, I seem to be boring you, and it's just really important that you guys understand how inappropriate this is for this part of the neighborhood, and I'm sure I will be perceived as a grumpy old NIMBY guy that just doesn't want change. And well, there's a lot of that's true. I am old. Yeah, I just turned 70 this last year. My wife told me that I really should smile more. I'm trying. But the change part of it couldn't be further from the truth. I really think that the idea and the plans, I mean, the goals that of putting the housing up on this property, expanding it, making it a campus that people can use and be a vibrant community is really a good idea. It's just the proposal that you have in front of you is just a really bad way to start. And I think that if you approve it and they build it, that it'll taint the entire project. It really won't be a good start to the whole thing. And so, like I say, I've given you a digital copy of my presentation. You have all the sites, all the written stuff in there, along with my verbal presentations. I left a lot of it out just because make it a little bit more bearable for you guys, but it just seems wrong to me in so many ways.
Thank you for your input.
So I would request that you deny this application outright and have them go back to the drawing board, get some more information about the wetlands, have them delineated properly, because it doesn't seem as if this project, it seems as if they're running afoul of an awful lot of our environmental goals that we hold dearly in this state. And it just doesn't feel right. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much, Michael.
Okay.
Anyone else in the audience want to, please? just come up to the middle thing here and state your name.
My name is Mona Williams, and I live at 311 Maple Street, diagonally across from Austin Drive. I don't have all the great details on laws, such as Mike. However, I do want to just put this out there that I feel like, yes, we need housing. And I think what Chloe, her original idea was absolutely wonderful to try to get more housing in Brattleboro because we need it. I personally don't feel like the presentation they're bringing to us right now, this 3-story high, 28 unit building, is something that fits into our neighborhood. Maybe if it could be something downsized a little bit to a 2-story, something a little smaller that fits into our neighborhood to start us off. Something that fits into all the zoning laws. But we also still need to talk about the traffic, which is already horrible on that corner. And it concerns me greatly to think that we're going to add 22 spots on the other side of Mike's house, and then more people coming in and out of that drive. That corner scares me. I have to come up out of my driveway, and I'm terrified, and I cannot tell you how many times I have almost been hit pulling in or out of my drive. If you have 22 more cars on the other side of that corner when they're coming, and we don't do something about the traffic, it's going to be a bigger issue. I would just like to say, I want to see something that fits into our neighborhood a little bit better and more focus on the amount of traffic we already have right there.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else want to make a comment? Anybody online, on Zoom? Okay. Now, do you guys want to say anything else? Okay. So I'm going to ask that we make a motion to go into deliberative session and close the public portion of the meeting. And I have a second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, folks.
Thank you.